Survivor Series WarGames is finally upon us, and if you want to have the most fun booking WarGames in your universe mode, then let me help you out with quick and easy tips for the build-up, your team dynamics, the best rivalry actions, avoiding certain mistakes, and much, much more. Let's go ahead and hop into it. The first quick and easy tip is understanding the big picture feud. Everyone loves tossing in the big name stars in their WarGames match, and that can be fun and all, but to have it be more fun and realistic to your rivalries and feuds, think about it like this. There's always an A-level feud and a B-level. Is it champion versus contender, feuding tag teams, feuding factions, brand versus brand? Think about it like that. So in real life right now in the men's WarGames, the A-level feud is Division versus the Raw top stars, as CM Punk, Roman Reigns obviously had their issue originally with Seth Rollins when he's leading the Division, but now with Paul Heyman and everyone else. Then also a B-level feud kind of arose. Brock Lesnar makes his return, enters the WarGames match. Then Roman Reigns makes his big return from being gone for a few months, takes out Brock for a night, and all of a sudden that's kind of that secondary B-level feud. So think about those types of things. And then on the women's side, think about it. It's more of a tag team feud, right? The A-level story is really that Rio versus Kabuki Warriors, with your B-levels being like the AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch, that kind of thing. So make sure it's A-level and B-level have intertwining feuds come together for one big match at WarGames. The next quick and easy tip I want to talk about is how to build up your WarGames match. This is pretty easy to do once you have your big picture feud kind of settled upon. If it's going to be a faction versus faction, it's pretty set in stone because you're not really adding any new superstars in, the dynamic's not really going to change, it's going to be simple promos, distractions, brawls, and attacks, that kind of thing. But if you're a little more realistic to what WWE does right now, which is having an A story and a B story with colliding rivalries and storylines, what I want to do is figure out how to build it up by not only having those big attacks, moments, and those kinds of things, but also bringing these superstars together for it all to make sense. From the rivalry actions perspective, we'll go into that in a few minutes, but right now I just want to make it clear that you want to think about how these dynamics are going to work, how these rivalries and feuds are going to come together to complete one WarGames match. How are your faces going to come together on one side, your heels going to come together on the other side, how it's going to be a mix of heels or faces. Think about, is it going to be brand versus brand, how are these teams going to come together? That's what you want to start thinking about before you head into the rivalry actions, because next up I want to talk about the team dynamics where this all comes together. So with team dynamics, this is really built off of both the big picture feud and your beginning ideas for your build, because dynamics play a big role in the build, but they also depend on the big picture rivalries and feuds going on. So basically, think about how in real life the team dynamics in the women's WarGames match for this year, Charlotte Flair wanted no part of it because Rhea Ripley was in there, so she didn't even want to team with her kind of friend Alexa Bliss. But you know, that big attack happened on the heels, on the faces, so then she got involved to get in the match. So that's a possible team dynamic of, you know, people who don't like each other coming together for a common cause, that kind of thing. At the same time though, think about it from a brand versus brand perspective, it could be a very similar thing. People don't like each other, but they come together for a brand. Think about it for the champion versus contender kind of aspect of in the men's side. The dynamics are CM Punk and Roman Reigns don't like each other, but the common enemy is the Vision. So think about how those dynamics will play out because you want to use them in promos. You should be taking advantage of promos for this. It's unfortunate you can only do the 1v1 promos and not, you know, factions or triple threats or fatal four-way promos. Hopefully it's in next year, but for now, just settle on one-on-one because you can have some really cool dynamics in promos by doing that. If it's a typical faction versus faction thing, then your team dynamics are going to be pretty on par for what you're already doing. So don't need to worry about that, but to keep it realistic, think about the dynamics and how they come together with heels and faces, heels and heels, people don't like each other, that kind of thing. And with that, let's move on to the next talking point. So now let's talk about rivalry actions and they're really the best ones to use for WarGames. So coming back to focusing on building up your teams, there's some great ways to do it. If you head over to the reversal section, you have a winner saves a loser. So if you have a face team versus a heel team, or one away to have two faces come together for a common cause, winner saves loser is great because that can build an alliance between two faces. Also, if you head over to the teamwork section, unlikely manager can be used for either heels or faces. Also, surprise manager, it really adds in a new dynamic of two people coming together for a common cause. So now, once you really have that focus of superstars coming together, you also have some great options for building up team versus team with attacks, those kinds of things. So what I'd love to do is, unfortunately, there is no specific WarGames rivalry action. Don't know why, since it was such a major addition a couple years ago in the game. But the steel cage fight, it's good enough because it has the cage and makes it feel WarGames-like. That's a great way to really push that WarGames kind of feel to it. If you go over to the ambush section, you also have some great options here. Post-match wild attack. It's a great way to have a superstar attack two different superstars, kind of form bonds and rivalries that way as well. But also the post-match kendo attack is great because if you use this, you can go ahead and say, let's add a kendo stick into the actual WarGames match. So it's kind of a callback to this as a great way to build up and add some more unique story points. Then also targeted arm ambush and targeted leg ambush are also some of the best ones in my opinion, because you go ahead and use these in the build-up. Then you can use it as another story point or talking point within your WarGames match to target that superstar's leg and arm some more. So in my opinion, those are the best really actions to really build up your WarGames match. There's a bunch of great ones. You may disagree on some of them, but in my opinion, those are the best rivalry actions to use. So go ahead and use those. The next tip I want to talk about to keep it realistic is having an advantage match for the WarGames. This is a great way to really keep it realistic, but also a great way to have one last story built heading into your WarGames match. So typically, it's either a singles match or a tag team match, but you know, always you have your managers or rest of the team getting involved. So head over to the distractions tab for the rivalry actions. There's a lot of cool ones to use. Double distraction, manager's distraction. That's a great way to really replicate that in real life to give one side an advantage, try and steal that win. But also, what if you change up the dynamic to being removal of managers? What if it's a tag match where the rest of the team is managing, gets ejected, and it really comes down to the situation where it's really who's the best tag team? Because it's not really a cheap steal win, it's who legitimately is better and who gets this much bigger advantage heading into WarGames. There's great ways to do it. You could also have, I forget which rivalry action it is, but one tag team member leaves out in the other. So you can use that to have a story beat of, you know, this team's really not getting along and they're at odds and it's looking really bad for WarGames. So make sure to use rivalry actions here as well to make your advantage match much more fun. And the final tip I want to talk about before I give you an example storyline is going to be having a plan for after your WarGames match. The biggest mistake that I see people have and people that ask me how to make this better is by having a plan for after it. Think about in real life how last year, the women's WarGames match, the A storyline was Rhea versus Liv and Rhea trying to win back her world title. And eventually she did at that first Raw of the year. So think about where your A story is going to end. Will it be that first Raw or SmackDown? Will it be the Royal Rumble? Will it be WrestleMania? Think about where that's going to end and how the WarGames match should kind of impact it one way or another. If you're not booking a specific winner and you're going to let the CPU play out, or going to do human versus AI and just have whoever wins wins, think about how whichever side wins, how it's going to impact your story and where you want it to go. The same thing goes for the B storyline. How is this going to impact it? Is the B storyline really going to have a huge play out with this WarGames match? Or are they being kind of separated to have some kind of, you know, promo where one shit talks the other, but in reality nothing big happened? So you need to have a big blow-off match or a big blow-off story after that. So think about where this WarGames match takes you, depending on the winner, depending on the story beats. Think about what makes the most sense for your storyline in your universe mode as it heads into WrestleMania season. And with that, let's go ahead and take a look at a fun example storyline I put together, how to book your WarGames match, all the build, all the way these quick and easy tips I talked about here in this video. Our fifth rivalry will lead up to Survivor Series and end in a WarGames match. As in the first week, two world title contenders, a face and a heel, who are both not champions but have a past rivalry, will both look to earn a title shot at WrestleMania, but they'll now butt heads as the face would come out for a promo discussing their road to WrestleMania. It's upon us and they're looking for a test beforehand. But out comes their former heel rival, and they state that the face should only be looking towards the Rumble, as the only way they get a title match at WrestleMania is getting lucky by throwing someone over the top rope. The face laughs and says that they guessed that pinning the heel a handful of times beforehand wasn't much to be proud of then. The heel, upset by that remark, starts brawling with the face. Then the following week, a mid-card heel who hasn't had much luck winning a mid-card title would come out for a promo, calling out a mid-card champion who could either be a face or a heel, and that mid-card champ would not come out to respond. The heel, growing frustrated, says that if the champ won't come out here and acknowledge him or her, then the consequences are coming, before storming out of the ring. And later that night, both the mid-card heel and the world title contending heel would attack the mid-card champ backstage, forming an alliance that felt completely out of nowhere. Then the following week, the mid-card title holder comes out for a promo, calling out the heels for the attack last week, but he or she's interrupted by a heel tag team saying that no one wants to hear their complaining, and if they want to handle their business, they should go do it backstage, rather than eat up time that is supposed to be meant for their tag team title match that night. And with that, the mid-card champ says they're right, and they make their way backstage. The heel tag team would then take on the tag team champs for the tag team titles, but they would ultimately fall short. Right after the tag team title match backstage, the mid-card champ and the heel mid-card contender brawled. The following week at the Go Home show, it opened with the heel tag team attacking the tag team champs after their loss last week. Then later that night, a tag team match between the world title and mid-card title contender heels would take on the face world title contender and the mid-card champion. This match would go down to the wire, but ultimately the mid-card heel would attack the mid-card champ with a chair shot, causing a DQ out of frustration. After all the chaos, the GM would come out to end the show, announcing that at Survivor Series, the heel world title contender, mid-card contender, and tag team contenders would take on the face world title contender, the mid-card champion, and the tag team champs at WarGames, since all they wanted to do was cause chaos. And then at Survivor Series, they'd face off in the WarGames match